Atep family. I welcome everybody to this affirmation class. My name is Ma'at Achat Atumre, and I'm a student teacher of our master teacher, formerly known to us today spiritually as Pana Babianun, known throughout time as a great author, Dr. Malachi Z. York, also known as His Excellency, Dr. Malachi Kobina, so Dr. York. This is a question and answer class. We've been doing this for over 40 years, and our master teacher has kept this going. So as students of our master teacher, we take our time to make it our job to answer any questions. We don't claim to know everything, but we are here to help our students or the students of life to grow. So with this, if anyone at this time have any questions from the audience and from online, feel free to ask your questions. It's good to see you, man. It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah. Always good to see you.
Hi, Tep.
Atep.
This question is coming from an online viewer, Shauna, and she asked, life, she want to know if is life what you make it, or is it, all in divine order, with the Most High being in control?
Can you repeat that question?
So she asked, is life is what you make it, or is it all in divine order with the Most High being in control?
Okay. To answer the question, first we must establish what is order and what is disorder. I say what is order and what is disorder is because throughout time and throughout the teachings of our ancestors, there's always been established order. They knew that the universe is a manifestation of divine mind in order. At the same time, you had what's called disorder. In ancient Egypt, what was called order was called ma'at. You know what I'm saying? Which stands for truth, justice, balancement, order, you know what I'm saying? And so many other attributes that attribute to the Panatat, or the goddess deity, Ma'at, who happened to be a female, which establishes a female established order. Also, you have what you call Isfat in ancient Egypt, and that deals with the force of disorder. As you look on throughout religion and throughout the school, it's been manifested to be what they call good and evil, or in Nuwapic we call it Dawau and Wawed. Now, what our master teacher explained about evil or the nature of the devil is anything or anyone that's against order. So basically, if you go against the natural order or the natural cause of things, that would be called disorder in the universe. We have order and disorder here also on the planet, and within ourselves, we constantly strive for order and disorder within our natures. The purpose, going to the initial question about life, right? Now, you are in control of your life. You know what I'm saying? You've been given that willpower, 360 degrees of what we call agreeable nature, and 360 degrees of what you call disagreeable nature within you. You also are a manifestation of natural nature. You know what I'm saying? Vibrating with this universe. The problem is, as non-ether beings who are the ones who are overseeing the planet here, we fell out of order. We fell out of order because our vibration level has been reduced from 9, which is perfection, to 7, which is completion, down to 6 ether, which is disorder according to our natural nature. I say our natural nature because our natural nature was supposed to be on 9 ether before the interventions of extraterrestrials and beings who try to feed off of us and reduce us down. And what it comes down to, it relates to you, because the point is you're the one who's experiencing these things and questioning these things within your genes, within yourself. Like, what is the purpose of life? You know what I'm saying? The purpose of life is to discover and to develop your potential. And that's how the master teacher explained it in the book called Your Potential. You know what I'm saying?
Tell that.
And for the sister online, I hope that question suffices. If not, please feel free to continue questioning on.
Okay, she also asked, she said she's unsure how you will answer this question. She was unsure how you will answer the life question, but she said this goes along with why in the world will we be left in such a place She says she understands about the cycles and coming back in multiple planes and higher communication, etc. But what are we doing here and why are we still here?
He said, what are we doing here and why are we still here? Okay.
To her.
All right. And I'm going to say this. I'm going to assume she say, and you know, we do our best not to assume. I'm going to assume what she mean by what are we doing here, talk about us as far as the descendants of non-ether beings.
I think that's what she's talking
Okay. All right.
From what I gather, I think that's what she's talking about. We as a race, species, why are we still here?
Okay. When she said why are we still here, does she means in the flesh, or why are we here ethically? Well, I mean, what?
Well, she didn't specify. She just said, what are we doing here and why are we still here?
Okay, do me a favor, just for clarity, because that was a lot. Repeat the question, if you could.
She asked, why in the world would we be left in such a place? She said she understood about the cycles and coming back in multiple planes and higher communications, stuff like that.
Okay.
But she wants to know what are we doing here and why are we still here?
Okay.
It sounds like she's asking them, we know that our answer's supposed to come and get us. I guess she's asking what are we still doing here?
Okay, I think I understand the question. The reason why we're still here, and this ties into the first question, is we're simply not prepared. You know what I'm saying? We're not prepared because of our vibrational level where we are. First, understand. The first thing to understand the answer to this question, you have to understand the state that you're in first. We're not in the state where we can be taken up, and this ties into the book number 14, the actual fact called Tone Sound Vibration, DNA Molecules. And if you give me a moment, I'm going to go ahead and pull that up. No, I'm sorry. That was Feeding the Force. No. What was that? We just went over that. It was number 18. Okay. No, the mutations. Emotional energy. Thank you. Correction. That book would be the emotional energy. Okay, what I'm going to do, sisters, I'm going to start with verse 56 of the emotional energy. And it starts as saying this. They who ruled for 6,000 years, 6 ether beings, don't have any scientific instruments on this physical material abode which they can detect or measure the presence of the higher abode 7, 8, nor 9 ether. And this establishes the kind of being that's been ruling for the last 6,000 years and how limited they are. Again, like I answered the question before, understand that our vibrational level has been reduced from 9 ether down to 6 ether, and they're even trying to bring us even lower. So we can be batteries or living organisms, spiritually and physically, to keep their forces going or feeding their force. They vibrate much faster and at a higher rate that will destroy them. These are more refined, more divine abodes of existence. More divine abodes of existence, right? Non-Wu-nuwaupians or Negroids vibrate on all 9 ether abode at the same time, as atoms and energy of one nutational rate are not in rapport, as they were with those of different nutational rate. That is, each race, those beings root races, the oldest and fastest to vibrate is the Negroid, followed by their many sub-races, and last, the root races of the Caucasoids or Mukasu, and its many sub-races which vibrate only up to 6 ether, and the Mongoloids up to 7 ether, while the originators, the Nagaru or Negroids, cover all vibrations as the creators of all others from themselves up to 9 ether. Verse 61, inasmuch as the nerve compose the mortals one sense, which is touch, which became 4 other senses in growth. 62, light touches to see particles to touch, by the ear to smell, waves vibrate to touch the eardrum to hear, and matter to touch the taste buds to taste. Yet all of them are contact with the nerves composed what mortals call their 5 senses. 64, while in fact that's only for the only 2 root races, while the divine race of goddess and gods, not demigods, as the Mongoloids, or demons as the Caucasoids, The Nagaru or Negroes have 4 higher senses, 4 higher to make up the 9 senses, all of atoms, while the mortals claim their 5 physical senses, and agree in all of atoms the same nutational rate as those of any other physical instrument. 66. Their 5 senses are also unable to perceive the higher abodes. 67. Yet as the Wu-nuwaupians vibrate now on this lower abode, and this is the point I'm trying to get to now. Yet as you Wu-nuwaupians vibrate now on this lower abode and use only your 5 senses, there are certain inner powers inherent in you as the seeds of the Nataru is in your blood, and by such you have ether, right? And ba'a, soul, and ka'a, or ka'u, spirit, while the other mortals have only ether, and ka, spirit, as that their mental power are limited, which establishes that you always have that connection. You're not left behind. 68. So you must drop your vibration. You must drop your vibrating levels down to theirs for them to come in and use your physical body on this abode, and by you travel to higher abodes to enact their isfat. Remember what I spoke about earlier. You have ma'at and you have isfat. So these are beings of disorder. Yet you have to welcome them by accepting their ways and actions. Their lust, greed, emotions. And our master teacher explained to us what emotions is. Emotions is what?
Energy in motion.
Energy in motion. And we are personification of energy beings, right? Attraction to their own kind, which is all they can feel for. They only love kind and animals. Kind being they vibrate at same rate with all other animals and beasts. Kill to rule, kill to eat, kill for joy, kill for pleasure. Evil by their very nature. And once you accept his 1 through 6 ether beings of spirit Ka'u forces into your being, you have in fact lost your soul, Ba'a, and became one of them. So this establishes where you are now and what they have planned for you and the route we are going. You know what I'm saying? That's the first thing you have to understand about being here. The second is understand that you have not been left behind. 68. However, certain sakumat powers inherent in your mind can provide the means whereby the upper forces of Hu, or Hu, which is your oversoul, will pull you back above by chanting and prayer and devotion to that which is right to do. That establishes the fact that it's always been available. You've never been left behind. The fact that you have a soul and you have a yearning to question tells you, right, that there's always been a connection. Now, who is that connection? And may even be seen, felt, experienced. 71. These intelligent, non-ether soul forces beings, Etherians, exist on all 9 abodes, and the bodies of the person who function on any given abode are composed of atoms of that respective nutational rate. 72. So they can be saved, redeemed, claimed. Check this out. So they can be saved, redeemed, claimed by one with beings in the upper and lower worlds or abodes. That means, like I said before, understanding who you are, understanding that you are a Etherian being, understanding that you are a soul being, understanding that you are a spiritual being, and understand that you have a physical body as well. And the fact that you are a non-ether, as an Etherian, being of the Nagaru race, you have the ability to vibrate on all 9 at the same time, which means that beings from lower forces and higher forces can claim you, right? The fact is, because we've been reduced down to 6, and the consciousness of understanding and knowing that you have access to the 9 abodes has been kept away from you, you only now know 6 ether and lower. But the soul constantly strives, like water, constantly tries to go back to its source. So as a non-ether being, you've never been left behind unless you willingly give up your soul to these 6 ether forces to feed off of you and keep you in a reduced state. Let me go on, right? so they can be saved, redeemed, claimed by one with beings in the upper and lower worlds or abodes. This being is Panatar Amun-nabab Rayay Akhakbatar for you, or who we call our master teacher, Panabab Yanun. The fact that he is here in this day and time, the fact that there were leaders before him who prepared the way for his coming, tells you that these beings called Panatar has always been concerned with us, and they never left us behind. We have to willingly reject them, literally. But the fact is, in order for us to be taken up out of here, guess what? Our vibrational level has to increase. How does it increase? 68 answers that. You have the powers in you. You must learn to chant, right? You must learn to pray on those particular tones and frequencies and do that which is right. Devote yourself to things that are good, because those are the forces of non-ether. Growth, regeneration, life forces in us. Not killing, murder, and taking for self, selfish desires that we've been reduced to, but growth. So those are things that you exercise to bring your vibrational level up, right? The point is our spiritual powers have been redirected. And the book, Feeding the Forces, explain that. How they redirect your spiritual powers to make you feed off their ancestors or feed their ancestors and reduce you. This is why you're always feeling so drained. You know what I mean? Feeling weak after this long week, as they call it. You work all week, you know what I'm saying, only to get weak. And then they give you that one day they call Sunday, which they stole from us, from the deity Ra, you know what I'm saying, to try to recharge you in their sixth ether hell called the church or seminars. You know what I'm saying? So that's what it is. But let me go further on. 73. He panatar amun-nabab Rayay Akhta is an atharu in person, an incarnation into flesh to save you, to raise your vibration rates higher. He can function, check this out, he can function on any abode. We have the ability to vibrate on all abodes, right? But he can function on all abodes, which is amazing. This is what six ether beings have been told by their lower forces of Wicca, and why they have imprisoned him to such a high level to keep him from touching you, and in so doing, activate your higher senses. And I'm going to stop there. Take the next question. Hattab, brother.
I just had a question. I just wanted to piggyback off the sister's question about waiting for our ancestors to come to us. Now, the master teacher has told us that, you know, the brothers may ask the question, well, I want to go to risk, or I want to leave here. And you know, master teacher say, well, where are you going? You can't live on risk because you won't be able to adapt. I mean, it has the multiple suns, and how are you going to go through that? And,
yes.
And me personally being, you know, have this spell of Leviathan and being studying right knowledge for years.
Tua.
I come to the realization is I would rather, you know, I might as well be a Christian if I'm waiting for somebody to come out the sky and save us,
Yes.
so-called save us.
Yes.
So I just want you to expound on that. It's like, I'm not waiting for anybody. I don't believe in anything.
Yes.
I'm not waiting for anyone to come and save me.
You know what's so amazing about your question?
What's that?
It's actually the opposite. We're thinking, okay, we're waiting for the Nataru to come by with the big ship in the sky to come save us.
Right.
No, it's quite the reverse.
Yes.
Our ancestors have always been here. The beings that are here to take us, those who are supposed to be taken,
Sure.
has always been there. They've been waiting on us to raise ourselves up, to be available to be taken.
Sure.
That's the problem with us. It's like, it's like you know, I'll tell you a very good example. It's like a bunch of ants, you know, a bunch of ants trying to take, how can I say this? I'll just stick to the point, stop trying to use a metaphor. I think you understand where I'm coming from. The fact is, they've always been here. We have to get ourselves together. Remember this, our master teacher came in what year to teach us? 63. In 1963, he came and he established a series of books in 1967 to 69 called the Nine Ball series. Also, the Bible interpretation and explanation, also the mechanics of the mind, right? Things that were available even in that time era, right? To try to raise our vibration up, to make us realize who we are and start to vibrate higher. As Nubians, we weren't ready. Which means what? Whatever spell was put on us was working strongly. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, remember, it's like if they activate you at the wrong time, you can vegetate out. You can just go. It's just a switch to activate you, but your vibration has to be raised up. So if he came then, 63 to 2013, how many years is that? That's 50 years. 50 years for us to get back to 1963 again. Because this information is 1963 information for this time. With much more information, it's all based upon where our consciousness is. He has to put the puzzles together to align our consciousness, right? Which will move us spiritually and physically. It's the mind, it's the mental, the fourth, the high. And then everything else is moved from there. You know what I mean? The way you feel, the way you move depends on how you think. So how you think determines how you live and establishes you are in control. But you're not in control if somebody else is controlling your consciousness. And the fact is, they've always been available. And our master teacher is an incarnation who's been put here to renew, to bring us back to a new state. You know what I'm saying? So that our ancient ones can reincarnate again. So those who are supposed to leave out of here can go. So they've always been available. The fact is, we was in a mind of monotheistic religion, which taught the big pie in the sky is waiting for you if you are good. And somebody will come and take you up out of here. Yeah, there's somebody who's going to come and take them up out of here. That's the food for the God doctrine. You know what I'm saying? Remember, non-ether could only liberate non-ether. Every race a warner was sent. A savior was sent to each race. You know what I'm saying? For their nutational rate, for their vibration. And they're saved by their savior. Our savior is teaching us how to save ourselves. That's the difference, and this is why people don't want to take that on, because it establishes responsibility. You have to be responsible for yourself. Remember the saying, many are called and few are chosen. But you have to make that choice, you know what I'm saying, to be chosen from that point, because the call was put out. The tones was put out, boom, to activate what's in your DNA. That woke you up to open up that first book. And you start taking genetic information to start to rearrange your DNA and rearrange your consciousness, only to be available for your parents to come and reclaim you again. They're right there. They're vibrating much higher. So if I cannot detect them, it's because it's my fault. Or because, not going to say my fault, because I'm in such a lower state, right, that I cannot reach them verbally. So our master teacher is giving us the right tools. He's giving us our way, patarak. It is our way which would establish us how to do a thing amongst ourselves and amongst others, right? Our culture, how to cultivate our children and ourselves, how to treat our elders, how to treat each other, our language, the tone and vibration and frequency that would align with our ancestors. Remember this also, overstand that our ancestors, Panataru, are interdimensional beings. So when you deal with dimensions, you deal with another state of existence that vibrate much higher. And I'm going to take you this book also called The Conscious Being. You know what I'm saying? Give me one second. Which also establishes understanding how the etheric state works and how your vibration also is reduced also. If you give me a minute. Okay, I'm going to start with verse 56 of The Conscious Being, and I'm going to jump to verse 63.
What's that scroll name again?
The Conscious Being. Not the conscious, it's called Conscious Being. Yes. 56. Nuwaupians, know this. The ethereal plane to which we are connected by way of our glands or seat, in the abode of many diverse elements, each of the non-etheric state vibrate and subdivide. Okay, 62. Mortals, that is, very physical humans, live in the slowest frequency level. Understand the state that we're in, right? In the field of vibration, as is to be expected. The higher levels in the field of vibrations are composed of the faster frequencies. Entities that exist within these levels think and act much faster than those in the lower levels or slower planes. As their mental states are much more unified in Pa-Pa'ut, the all, a group mind called mental, right? So this establishes the mental abode where beings vibrate and the lower abode where we are. 67. As one descends through the field, gravity increases, dragging down thought into separateness, allowing for the development of individual consciousness, choice, will, and easy access by demon forces. So this establishes the abode of the physical. It's a plane where demon forces have access from below and higher forces have access from above. But since we have become individual thoughts, now we have to unify and raise our vibration up to non-mind to become unified in that particular field. Okay, 68. Who dwell on the lowest level, waiting to step into their khatat bodies, take over their minds, use their emotion, then once they cause them to do something or say something wrong, they move on to the next person. You know what I'm saying? And I hope that answered your question.
Yes, too. But I had another question on that.
Yes.
You talked about the lower beings also and the higher upper beings.
Yes.
But is that just on this plane? Because outside of this plane, there is no good or evil or anything like that, per master teacher, what he's taught us. Outside of this plane, there's no good or evil. It just is.
Okay, when you say outside of this plane, right?
Right.
Okay, first establish this. Good and evil, right, depends on you and your state.
Well, basically talking about, not positive or negative, but seraphim, I want to say, whether it's agreeable or disagreeable.
Okay, that's the thing. And this could be very confusing to many people. People confuse agreeable and disagreeable with order and disorder. You know what I'm saying? With good and evil. You know, there's actually a difference. Or good and bad, let's say. You know what I'm saying? But evil is a different state. Because what could be good to you could be bad for me, or what could be bad for me could be good to you. Evil is a state. You know what I'm saying? Just like the state that we vibrate is a particular state that's right for us and our rate as etheric beings. You know what I'm saying? But there are lower forces who vibrate as high as 6. And it's good to them to feed off of you and keep you in a particular state. Now, to answer your questions, you have beings on lower dimensions or lower states of existence, right, that are not for you. And those are wicked forces that feed the Mukaso or empowers them to do what they do, because that's their spiritual link or their spiritual powers. And those are also lower forces in nature. You know what I'm saying? And this ties into the cycle, because you have the cycle of the sun and you have the cycle of the moon. When the moon cycle comes, the children of the sun sleeps, and the moon people rule during that time, right? And when they rule, you know, things are the way they are accordingly.
Chaos.
Exactly. Chaos is, you know, is in motion, in other words. You know what I'm saying? So you have states of existence where you have beings who are agreeable, disagreeable. You have beings who are evil and good, who exist on those states or those lower dimensions. So anything that's lower than 6 is not good for us. You know what I'm saying? Because as a 6th ether being, remember this, holy tablets. It spoke about the 3 creations. You have primary creation, you have tertiary creation, secondary creation, and then you have tertiary creation, which is 3rd, right? Primary creation is where we grew as non-ether forces. Secondary dealt with evolutionary process, right? And then tertiary dealt with ghost stations, or ghosts, specters, and things of that nature. And remember what he said. He says, the death of 6th ether, you know what I'm saying?
Ghost.
Exactly, it's ghost. The death of non-ether is 6th ether, the death of 6th ether is ghost, and then non-ether resurrects again. There's a cycle in the universe of how things work. You know what I'm saying? So, hope that answers your question with that. All right.
While we're on the subject of disagreeable beings, one of our YouTube questions, guys have a question. His name is Devontae P. He asked about
Divine what?
Devontae Peak.
Devontae Peak.
Yeah, you asked about, how do you, or what can you say immediately about repelling, adverse forces away from yourself? I guess this question is dealing with psychic self-defense. Maybe you can build on that for that.
You said, how do you keep,
How do you repel negative forces away from you, from the self?
okay, how do you repel negative forces away from you?
Yeah, from yourself. Like I said, I think it's a psychic self-defense question, really. Maybe you can explain that.
Okay? You repel negative forces from attacking you by surrounding yourself with positive things. So you won't be available for negative forces to come there. In other words, right, if you are a person who do good and you walk into a bar, right? Case scenario, you walk into a bar and you're not a drinker. You're not a smoker, but you surround yourself by beings who smoke and drink, which makes them open for anything to walk into them. Guess what? You've now endangered yourself. You put yourself in an environment where you're susceptible for anything to happen to you. So if I'm in an environment where I'm available to be attacked, what must I do? As Patarak establishes, you must learn to avoid things, avoid fights, avoid things that will create or draw these things towards you. So be around like-minded people, and you'll start to see your vibration levels start to raise up, right? You must chant in your tones. You know what I'm saying? You must establish prayer in connection with your ancestors. Those are the things that will help to detour them or detour these kind of forces from coming at you. But realize if you are in a rulership where sixth ether is ruling, right, you are going to be attacked. But how do you minimize the attack? By not making yourself available to them, period. And also realize, good brother, that the moment you decide to betray sixth ether for non-ether, they're out to get you. That's the bottom line. You know what I mean? And most of us experience that. The moment we start to gravitate towards Wu-nuwaupu, right, all kind of things start happening. What we may call good or evil or bad. All of a sudden that job that you wanted for all those years just popped up. Why? To distract you. Just because it's a good thing, it may appear good, that doesn't mean it's good for you. Just like something may taste good, and it may not be good for you. You know what I'm saying? Or it could be something negative. All of a sudden somebody you love just passed on, just to detour you. Or all of a sudden you lost your job, or something very bad, as we call it, start to happen. You know what I'm saying? But, I hope that answered the brother question. If it doesn't, feel free to continue asking your question online. And with that answer, I will pass the class now on to my good brother, Suramitut Hitap Khaut.
Thank you so much, brother. Appreciate that. We're going to edit that out on the video. The beauty of technology. Hot tap. All right. What's going on, brother? How you doing?
Hotep, I'm doing very well. I had a question in relation to what the good brother was just talking about as far as it goes for the evolutionary forces. I have been, I think, getting evolutionary forces and revolutionary forces mixed up. I think could you give me some clarity on the difference between evolutionary forces and revolutionary forces as they relate to 9 and 6E?
Tell you. All right, good to go. I think our very good and artistic brother is gonna draw something on the board for us. That's gonna not autistic. We're talking about artistic, brother. Artistic. With the difference between evolutionary and revolutionary cycle, as the master teacher has explained. With revolutionary, it was having to do with us coming back to a point to where we were. That's that counterclockwise motion where we're coming back up, we're waking back up into who we are. So it's like we're revolving, coming back and reawakening back to who we are. Their job as beings during that sixth ether part, or their part, was going in this direction. Well, actually, no. Hold on real quick, if you don't mind. So I just make sure I don't give you the, it's the same way that you see 9 and 6 being opposite of each other. The Caucasoid in the evolutionary cycle, while we are in our revolutionary cycle. Like I said, we are revolving back to who and what we are. For this last 6,000 year period, we've been up under that point where they were given power to rule for the 6,000 years. So like you said, we were asleep. That was the sleep, you know, like you said, he's affectionately referring to us as mummies at this point in time. So now we reach, when you're dealing with the circle, I thought he was gonna, yeah, he did it. Yeah, exactly. Here, this is where we are originally, right? And so our natural nature is to go through the cycle of going from this 9, and then once it goes to 6, which is the death of 9, but then 6 ether itself has to die and it turns into ghost, right? So you go from life to death, and then death has a death as well, which is ghost. And then as you begin to come back up to who we are revolving back to the point to where we come from. And that's where we're coming through now. We are now revolving back to our point and our purity and purity being non-mind, being those non-ether beings in mind. You follow? So that, when you're dealing with the evolutionary cycle, you're dealing with their evolution. But while we're revolving back to who we are. Because another thing, remember when you're dealing with those particular beings, especially talking about Caucasoid beings on this planet, they are a grafted being. They have an unnatural nature. They weren't actually created along with all of natural nature's intent. They were created synthetically, if you want to say it like that, because they were created in a laboratory. They were mixed up between Pleiadian genetics and simian genetics, canine genetics, porcine genetics, and that's the one thing that they want to keep hidden from us in this point in time, like the master said, why they want to do all of the warring that they do over in the Middle East, actually to distract and destroy all of the evidence that goes to show what their actual origin is. They would have to bear witness to the fact, okay, we come from a petri dish, right? As the master teacher has explained, you know, comically speaking, not racist speaking, just, you know, dealing with the facts. So they don't want you to go back to the fact that they were created within a petri dish and they've had to go through evolutions. They've mixed up. First you had the Homo simian. They were made with simians to be able to have enough intelligence to work inside of minds. And then once they were down in the minds, you know, being down in those minds, it was a lot of germs and things of that nature. So some of them was dying off. So then they said, okay, we need to utilize genetics from a swine in order to be able to basically make it where they can't get sick, because, you know, swine doesn't get sick. So they mixed their genetics with that, put them down in there. So that helped them in that sense. Then they said, okay, we need to have a little bit more aggressive nature inside of them. So then they utilized that genetics, you know, as far as the canine, that make them a little bit more aggressive when they needed them to fight for them inside of their war and things of that nature. Then you have those beings mix each other. They create a whole nother being. So now what's happening with this whole strand, when you're talking about Adamites, they're actually going through evolving with who and what they became. Over time, they had different mixtures that came into them, and they started evolving into new creatures. While we ourselves, we're going back to what we come from. Like I said, we are the physical manifestation of 9 ether on this planet. There's nothing that's higher than 9, so we can't evolve going higher than where we are. We have to revolve back to the state that we've fallen from, which is what the first series of questions was actually, you know, going to begin with. So that's one of the ways that I always remember the difference between the evolutionary cycle and the revolutionary cycle is we're revolving back to our greatness while they were evolving after having been made. You follow? That's the way that I always remember it.
Okay.
Tayo? All right, does that help?
Yep.
All right, I was trying to get this this holy tablet part for you, but I couldn't find it right here. So I apologize for that. If I get it while I sit down, I'll bring more. Okay? Online question.
It's another online question from Shawnee.
Hi, Ted brothers, how y'all doing? All right, all right.
She asks if this earth that we exist on today is a jungle of different types of beings, said, with different goals. He said, and our true ancestral linkage is what we should be inspired to live by, then how does life have a purpose? You know, he said, it seems like we're offspring. You know,
How does life have a purpose?
Yeah.
Say, can you read that one more time for me?
he said, if this earth that we exist on today is a jungle of different types of beings.
You said this person's name is Shauna. Is that a
Shauna.
female or a male?
Yeah, Shauna.
I thought you said he just now. My bad. Go ahead.
She. Different types of beings with different goals, etc. And our true ancestral linkage is what we should be aspiring to live by. Then how does life have a purpose?
Okay. Awesome. Okay. What is our purpose if we have all these different genetics and we've had all these different mixtures and things of that nature on the planet? What is life and how does life have a purpose now?
Yeah.
All right. It's awesome that this is an online question because obviously we know that you're seeing the class online. So the first thing I would suggest is there's a reading from our Supreme Grand Council of the Elders, and the name of that Patarak that they read is called The Master Secret, Birth of Earth. Inside of that particular Patarak, it hasn't been printed in form yet, so the best place for you to see it, of course, is right there. Go to the Patarak channel on YouTube, and then you'll be able to find it. It's called The Master Secret, Birth of Earth. Okay, within there, he explains how we have forgotten our purpose after having gone through this spell of amnesia for this last 6,000 year period. It's got a lot of science in there where it starts to explain about the 24,000 year cycle, the 24,000 genomes, how they also created the planet having that circumference being in the 24,000, and it explained that we had 24 feats of perfection that we actually came to this planet needing to do before we go back where we came from. But because we've been up under that spell, like he's always taught us, we're out of our minds. So we've forgotten what our mission was when we came to this planet or incarnated into these physical bodies on this planet. One thing that a lot of times we find, and I was talking to somebody earlier today, sometimes we forget when we're talking about extraterrestrial beings or we're talking about multidimensional beings, we speak as if we aren't those beings ourselves, as if we didn't manifest into physical bodies from having already existed prior to being in physical body. We forget that because the fact of the matter being, we've gotten so, like you said, we fell in love with our physical self, right? So the thing is, your purpose, just like what he explained, my brother explained earlier, as the Master has explained to us before about water, it's always going back to its source. So therefore, your purpose still is to go back to your source. Now, in between this, we've had distractions and we've had inclinations from other beings and their genetics. What does that do? What that does is that takes us out of our own natural nature, and we begin to do things which is unnatural to our own nature. This is why we have to be given Patarak. Patarak gives us our way, which puts us back in our natural nature. So therefore, we'll begin to vibrate on our correct frequencies. Once we are correct in our frequencies, and let me pull this out real quick, because one thing that Patababi Nun explained all the way from back in the Holy Tablets, he explained, or one thing that happened is, some people think, okay, I'm going to get some books and I'm just going to read some books and then that's going to be it, right? I'm just going to act like I'm heavy. I got a whole lot of information and all that good stuff, and I know what's going on. But when we go to the Holy Tablets, the Master explained that there was a qualification for Wu-nuwaupu. Yeah, we said qualification. You had to qualify for your own spiritual science. And he explained that you had to first be able to pass the capability test in order to do that. And in that capability test, he explained that what we would have to do is we would have to be able to turn away from the religions of our oppressors. We would have to turn away from and reject the spirit force names of their religious names and everything else, because those things aren't helping us. Because with us, all religion is alien to us by our very nature. We predate all religion. Our ancestors didn't operate by religion. Our ancestors operated by ontology, by understanding the nature of all things. And this is what we are going back to, our natural nature. Give me one moment as I find this right here. I know it's in chapter 10 of the Holy Tablets. Okay. Let's read it from verse 118. well, no, let's go to 115. Inside of Holy Tablets, chapter 10, what tablet is that? That's tablet 12, starting at verse 115. It says, nevertheless, if a person accepts his own spiritual science, Wu-nuwaupu, he has accepted himself and his own kind as the superior power. Then the visible and invisible forces and powers can easily work for you and with you for liberation and well-being. All religions are alien by nature to you, except the spiritual science of Wu-nuwaupu. Wu-nuwaupu is the equalizer for you anywhere and any time. You must embrace a purpose and a plan, and must develop the power to execute the purpose and plan. Idleness and ignorance must play no part in the plan. You must take the plan in pursuit of purpose. The purpose must be mental and physical liberation from adverse forces. The plan must be in pursuit of the purpose via right knowledge, right wisdom, and right understanding, because right knowledge through right reason tells you what to do, when to do it, and what must be done in the pursuit of the purpose. You get the power to execute the purpose and plan by rejecting the oppressor's religion and his spirit forces, including the names of his spirit forces. Control your thinking with right knowledge. All right, now let's skip over to verse 135 or 134 before that. It says to elaborate a bit further, 133, let's do that. Excuse me, I'm sorry. 133 says to elaborate a bit further on the first step to power mentioned in the previous paragraph, you must first pass the capability test. The capability test determines whether your mind is capable of growing in and with the new sun cycle, the revolutionary cycle. What we just were talking about, brother, says the capability test determines whether your mind is capable of growing in and with the new sun cycle, the revolutionary cycle, right? You have passed the capability test when you are able to actually deny and reject the alien religion, spirit forces, and the names of their spirit forces, such as God, the false Jesus, Lord, Christ, ghosts, etc. There is no growth in a person unless he is able to pass this test. Mind power is the greatest power in the universe, and you as a race are greatly in need of it in order to think and do for yourselves, independent of other races as other races are independent of you. Again, as in the days of old, the second step to power is the acceptance of right knowledge by the practice of it. Then, universal forces can and will work for you and with you to achieve your goals. The third step is controlling your various emotions and getting things accomplished through right knowledge, sound right reason, and sound action, instead of trying to escape from your responsibilities through strong drinks, drugs, and sexual gratification. The less pleasure you have, the less your burden of liberation will be. And that's up to verse 147, starting from 115. Okay? And if you can you give me that question one last time just so we make sure we got all the points out of it?
Okay, she asks that if this earth that we exist on today is a jungle of different types of beings with different goals, etc., and our true ancestral linkage is what we should be aspire to live by, then how does life have a purpose?
Good to go. I'm glad you brought that back. The Masters also explained to us, and I said this already, that our doctrine of Wu-nuwaup is a genetic doctrine. Many times we've forgotten what that actually means when it comes down to inclinations here. Like you said, this is indeed a jungle because you've got all different beings from different places with different natures who've come here. But the highest of all these beings are our ancestors in the Tharu. As the Master Teachers always explain, we've got our soul seed linked to those beings, right? But indeed, we've had mixtures that have happened. So therefore, we've taken on and been influenced by beings of a lower nature than ourselves. Therefore, it's within our grasp to turn around and go back to our highest nature, because we are indeed connected to those which are the highest within this universe, on into the multiverses, back with the Natharu. So it becomes our responsibility in that war, as the master said on a tape called Egyptian Mat, as Muslims took it to say jihad was a fight on the outside. He explained that the jihad that you actually have to have is that one internally within your own nature, so that your higher nature will win that war over your lower nature. So therefore you will be able to ascend yourself in that sense.
Okay, tell that. She, you actually answered another one of her questions, where she asked, because it goes back to the, when the brother made the analogy of water, seeking water. Because I remember the master always said to us, he said that water comes out of a source, seeking that source,
Right.
trying to find its way back to that source. So this leads into her other question when she asked, what exactly does the master teacher say about the point of life? Why fall from greatness only to aspire to be great? Do you see what I mean?
He said on and to aspire to be great.
Only to aspire to be great.
Right, okay. No, it's not that we are in a race to be great. The reality is we are who we are already. We've been up under this spell for the last 6,000 years where we've forgotten our greatness. We've been up under this spell of amnesia where we've been asleep and we don't even recognize the greatness that lies within you. That greatness that's tied to you by your genetics that can't even go away if you wanted it to, except for you to continue to ignore it, and that's ignorance, right? So that's why we have to be reactivated. When you look around in this temple and you see all of these different images that look like you and I, those things start to spark things within us that reminds us of who we are. So when we start to see the greatness of ourselves and we begin to look back and have a love of our own image, because think about it. I just spoke with a brother earlier today, and Baba would always say this too. He said, don't believe me, check it out. He said, because you're not going to believe anything I say unless you go and you get it validated by the white man. Why was that? Because our mindset had been changed to say, oh, this guy is the authority on this particular thing. Doctor such and such, if he said it, then what that nigga over there said must be right. You know what I'm saying? So that you always had to validate what one of our leaders was saying to you based on what your so-called oppressor was saying. So you still end up going back and running to the oppressor to say, okay, since he validated it, yeah, Pat might be on something. Because it's been implanted into your DNA to not trust your own kind. It's been implanted into your DNA to look in the mirror and not love yourself. So it's not about us going to greatness as much as it is reclaiming the greatness that is us, if that makes sense. And I hope I answered your question. If we didn't answer the question, please make it a point to go ahead and write another question up there, and we'll do our best to to fulfill that answer for you.
All right, this is another question from a brother calls himself Ali 999602. He's commenting from a class 110-214. And the class is dealing with homosexuality.
Okay.
And I think he's confused about the homosexual, and the gatekeeper. Because he asked, he said, are we really trying to justify homosexual behavior, or are we just giving information? And if all your different ET races bred the humans, would that explain the degenerate behaviors of human beings?
Okay. I'm probably gonna need you to come and re-give me the second half of that again. But let's jump to the homosexual part first, because that's such a hot button issue. Once again, our DNA has been affected by this religion. In our language, we don't have a word for religion. Our word that we utilize is called za'am. The closest English translation would be opinion. So a lot of times we'll say za'amat or religious opinions. When you first go back and you ask yourself if you're being honest and you don't just want to argue, right? Why does it matter to you what someone's sexual preference is? The only reason why someone's sexual preference even matters to you is based on your acceptance of what is sexually acceptable based on religion. If this person has a sexual preference to have sex, if a male has sexual preference to have sex with another male, and it's not you, what does that have to do with you? Our master teacher has taught us, stay out of other people's bedroom, right? Number one. So it's not about me having to justify anybody's sexual preference, number one. I mean, think about it. There's a side where we say we're trying to justify people's sexual preference, but it's funny because at the same time, what people are trying to do is justify the mistreatment of people for their sexual preference too. Like a brother was in here a few weeks ago talking about it, and he said in Jamaica they was literally killing people just because they were homosexual. And we have a lot of people right now in Africa we got a lot of people who say that they are in the conscious community talking about Africa. But if you go and do some research between certain tribes in Africa right now, you'll find that quote unquote gatekeepers, or these people who also have a homosexual tendency, are highly regarded in certain tribes. And they're needed. Watch this. Our master teacher explained first and foremost when it came down to you talking about these beings that we refer to as gatekeepers. And true indeed, all gatekeepers aren't homosexual, if you would. You have beings who are gatekeepers that have a male gatekeeper that may have a wife and children and everything else, right? But with that being the case, like you said, Akhenaten had a wife, right? But he also explained that Akhenaten was a hermaphrodite, right? And Nefertiti was a hermaphrodite, right? But they were married together. They were still gatekeepers, right? So you don't necessarily have to be homosexual in that sense, right? But then those who are homosexual, what does that have to do with me? The master explained when you're dealing with gatekeepers, why are they called gatekeepers and what makes them special? He says, because when you're dealing with a physical being that manifests on this planet, you can have a being who's physically male but have a female spirit. And he explained that as being connected to what's called the double portion inside of religion, right? Now check this out. If you go to 2 Kings chapter 2 verse 9, right? I'll read it. It says, and it came to pass when they were gone over, that Elijah said unto Elisha, ask what I shall do for thee before I be taken away from thee. And Elisha said, I pray thee, let a double portion of thy spirit be upon me. Right? It's interesting because the master teacher explained that when you're dealing with gatekeepers, gatekeepers have a double portion. What does that mean? He said, because they have the ability to resonate on two frequencies at the same time. So for instance, all right, if we look at Patarak, our tone's wavelength A,